Outside the box baseball tips of the day. We are thrilled you can join us this morning. I'm your host, Pete Caliendo. We have another day, great tip. Yesterday we covered different topics about books and podcasts that we've listened to, how to educate yourself as a coach every day. Today, our baseball tip of the day, since the season for a lot of teams are going on, is how to maintain your fundamentals, how important it is to maintain your strength, your fundamentals during the season, and why. Before we start, I want to tell you about a book called it's The Zen Way of Baseball from Sada Araho. I had the great pleasure several times of working with Sada Araho at the World Children's Baseball Fair. This is a great book. It's hard to get. You have to buy it from somebody online. You can't just order it. It is about the Zen of baseball. It will explain Sada Araho, a lot of things he did in training as a hitter, as a professional player in Japan. As you know, Sada Araho is the all-time home run champion of the world. Just an incredible individual, a superstar, a person who would practice 2 hours before games, sometimes 2-3 hours after. Just to give you an example, in hitting, he would stand on one leg, sometimes for over an hour, a couple hours at times, to strengthen the backside, understand how to ride that back leg. And he would also take a string and put a piece of paper on a string that's hanging. He would take a sword with the art of a Kendo, which is the art of swordsmanship. He would train on cutting the angle of that piece of paper. So there's a lot of great things you can pick up on the mental part of the game, so check it out if you're able to get that online somewhere. But again, you have to buy it from somebody. All right, we'll get started with the show. Tip of the day, again, is to cover why it's so important that young players maintain their fundamental skills during the season. They practice a lot in the winter. They worry about their fundamental skills, and that's great. But then the season begins, and we forget about the fundamental skills. What do I mean by the fundamentals? Well, we're talking about the fielding, the throwing, the hitting, the certain skills that they do in every game. If they're not working on those skills, their bodies get weaker. They start to compensate. So now a shortstop that picks up a ball may not get in the right position. He may not be turning completely towards the target to throw. He may be halfway, putting a lot more stress on the elbow and the shoulder. Possibly, the ball might float away or angle away from where he wants to throw. The same thing with pitchers. If they're not maintaining their strength, their fundamental work, this can be done in the mornings. You don't have to particularly throw. If you're working on fielding, you could field and put the ball into a bucket. If you're working on throwing, you can get into that position. If you don't want to throw because you're going to be doing a lot of throwing, you don't have to throw. Again, get to that fielding and get to that throwing position, and now they're able to continue those fundamentals, even if you're taking 10, 20 ground balls a day extra. Same thing with hitting. You tend to get weak as the season goes on. What are you doing to maintain your strength in those particular areas of the body that allow you to swing the bat? What particular areas are you strengthening, keeping your backside strong so your elbows are able to get to the certain position? Because if your backside is weak, you don't know that as a player, and you will start to drop your elbows and compensate. The very good athletes, the players that throw really hard, are the ones that are going to get hurt, have a higher chance of getting hurt. And you don't know as a player, you might be opening up too soon before you throw it from shortstop or another position, outfield position. You still might get the ball where you need to get it to, still may get the runner out, but you're putting a lot of stress on the elbow and the shoulder. So if you could find a time to take some extra ground balls, every morning or every other morning, and then maybe hit some batting practice, you can do that on your own. You can hit, by throwing balls up and hitting. You can hit off a tee. I know a lot of people don't like hitting off tees now. They don't think it's part of the progression of the game, but hitting off a tee does help because it works on your fundamental skills, allows you to work on that feel, that constant movement where you're not stopping anywhere, and it allows you to keep that feel mentally as well as physically. As a player, we've got to feel the positions we're in when we're training to make sure we're in the right positions. These are all important things you can do. You could practice prior to the game. Maybe you take some ground balls, take some swings to make sure that you're maintaining that. Go talk to some of the people that have been on our podcast. You can talk to them, whether it's Jeff Crochelle or Nunzio Signore. They have been on our podcast. Check them out. Find out the areas that you need the strength to maintain your fundamental skills that kind of compensate. Are you using tubing? Are you using medicine ball work? Whatever you may be doing throughout the season is very important. Sometimes you might be reducing the size or the weight of the bat as the season goes on. There's other ways to maintain your strength, but make sure that you're doing that. And don't forget, check out our podcast. We just had 51-year coaching expert Rich Hoffman, the Alex Rodriguez's high school baseball coach. There's 2 topics we talked about on there. We talked about showcases, how important they are or not important, depending on what your goals are. How many showcases do you have to go to? There's so many out there. How do you pick which showcases to go to? The other thing is, a lot of you might be going and playing with travel teams in the summer. Which travel teams do you pick? Why do you pick certain travel teams? What's more important, practicing more or playing games? Well, we know that. It's practicing. When we talk about Cuba, Japan, some of the top countries in the world, Latin America, they practice more than they actually play games. Now, they play a lot of games because the weather's good all year round, but they practice a lot, and that's how you maintain your fundamental skills. So that's the tip of the day from Pete Caliendo. I'm your host of Baseball Outside the Box and also your host on Baseball Outside the Box. Tip of the day. Check it out on Facebook and YouTube. Spread it. These are real basic right now. We'll start getting into more and more details. We look forward to having you guys watch the shows and listen to our podcast. I want to wish you the best. God bless you and have a great coaching day.